Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The topic of today's lecture would be variables, identification, and different types. Now, a variable, what is a variable? Whether we accept it or not, we all make valuable judgments constantly in our daily lives. A particular food may be judged as excellent by one person, and it may be judged as awful by another. Or something else could be wonderful for one person, but it may be presumed ugly for another. An image, perception, or concept that is capable of measurement, hence capable of taking on different values, is called a variable. A concept that that can attain values or measurement, that has the ability of uh, being defined into measurement, is called a variable. On the other hand, a concept is that can be, you can say, that can be measured as a variable. Concept is an image. It can be an idea only, just an idea, which cannot be measured. Whereas an image, a concept, when it is converted into a measurable item, then it is called a variable. According to Kerlinger, a variable is a property that takes on different values. Putting it redundantly, a variable is something that varies, as the name suggests. The difference between a concept and a variable, that is a two close items, two close definitions to understand. Measurability is the main difference between a concept and a variable. Concepts are mental images, are perceptions, and therefore their meanings vary from individual to individual. A concept cannot be measured, whereas a variable can be subjected to measurements. You just got an idea in your mind, an image in your mind, which you can explain about it, but you cannot place that item, place that image on measurement scale. Then it's just a concept. Whereas when you put it into values, then it's a variable. It is therefore important for the concepts to be converted into variables, either directly or through a set of indicators. Even though the degree of precision with which they can be measured markedly varies from one measurement scale to another. For example, concepts can be effectiveness, satisfaction, impact, excellent, high achiever, self-esteem, reach, domestic violence, extent and pattern of alcohol consumption, etc. There can be so many concepts, you know. But you simply have an image. Okay, this is an excellent attitude. This is an excellent phenomenon. Person is an excellent. He's an excellent person. He's got self-esteem. He's a very rich person. He's a poor person. The person has born domestic violence. So he consumes alcohol a lot. But what is the degree of these all these different items? How effective is a campaign? How satisfied is a person? What is the impact of something? What is the level of excellence of some person? How much a person has achieved? What is the value of self-esteem? So if you put all these things into measurements, then that's a variable. Sorry. Subjective impressions, concepts have subjective impression. They've got no uniformity as to its understanding among different people, and they cannot be measured. Variables, on the other hand, for example, a gender, whether it's a male, female, you have defined it. Attitude, defined. It's a different age, income, weight. You say that a person is rich. Now that's a concept. How rich is he? What is his income per year? That is the value that will provide you the value or the measurement. Therefore, it's a variable. Height, weight. You say religious. Person is religious. What is his religion, etc. Measurement through the degree of precision varies from scale to scale and from variable to variable. For example, attitude subjective, income is objective. Then converting concepts into variables. Now, for that, uh, if you are using a concept in your study, you need to consider its operationalization. That is how it will be measured. In most cases, to operationalize, to conceptualize, to materialize a concept, you first need to identify indicators, certain indicators, which can then be converted into variables. And the indicator for a concept must have a logical link with the concept. For example, some concepts such as rich can easily be converted into indicators and then variable. For example, if you decide a person is rich, one need to first decide upon the indicators of wealth. How much wealth if a person is going to have, and then you are going to consider him as rich. In qualitative research, as it usually involves studying perception, beliefs, feeling, and therefore measurements and variables, they do not carry much significance. Talking, that is the qualitative research, they don't really bother about these measurements and variables. How, However, in quantitative studies, measurements and variables, they play an important role. That's one of the main difference between a qualitative and quantitative research as well. That is, variables are taken into account, especially taken into account in quantitative studies, whereas in qualitative studies, the concepts and beliefs, they are important, and measurements are not that much significant. Different types of variable, there are lots of different types, but we will be focusing more on the one which are related to biomedical sciences. um, Dependent, independent variable, they are the most important one. They are the one around which rest of the variables they are linked with. Dependent variable is the variable that is affected by the independent variable. It is the outcome or change that is brought about by the introduction of an independent variable. You have one dependent, that is uh, an independent variable, which is actually the effect variable, and it works on the dependent variable and brings about a change or outcome. And the dependent variable, it actually responds to the independent variable. Independent variable initiates, and dependent variable, it responds to it. Whereas independent variable, that is the cause or inducer, I must say, supposed to responsible for bringing about change or changes in a phenomenon or situation. It presumes to influence other variables. It is the presumed cause. Independent variable is the presumed cause, whereas dependent variable is the presumed effect or the outcome of the independent variable. Now, intervening or mediating variable, they are sometimes called as the confounding variable, which links the independent and dependent variable. In certain situations, conditions, the relationships between an independent and dependent variable cannot be established without the intervention of another variable, that is the mediating variable. It is the variable whose existence is inferred, but it cannot be measured necessarily. Related to them are extraneous variables, which are undesirable effects that influence the relationship between the variables an experimental or researcher is examining. These factors, not measured in the study, may increase or decrease the magnitude or strength of relationship between independent and dependent variable. For example, you put up an example that just would like to study the relationship between smoking and cancer, and then you place up an hypothesis that smoking is the cause of cancer. Now there can be so many different factors which might be affecting this relationship, such as the number of cigarettes that being smoked by a person, the amount of tobacco that is being smoked every day, the duration of the smoking, the age of the smoker, what are his dietary habits, or the person, what is his is he does he exercise daily, what is his health condition. All these different factors, they are going to affect this relationship that you are going to study, and they are going to affect the level of the development of the disease as well. These variables might either increase or decrease the magnitude of the relationship. Whether a person is, he's good, he has got good diet, and then he, along with the smoking, he has got this habit of doing the exercises every day. He goes out for run every day. So Along with smoking, these factors, they might, some of the factors are increased in tobacco consumption, duration of smoking. It might increase the risk of developing the cancer. Whereas in contrast, some other habits like running or exercises, it might possibly decrease the development of the cancer. So in this example, the extent of smoking is the independent variable or the cause, whereas cancer is the dependent variable, which is the outcome of that cause, and all the variables that might affect the relationship either positively or negatively are extraneous variables. Another example can be how stress affects mental state of an individual. So the stress is over here is an independent variable, which is also the presumed cause, and stress over a course of time, it being a cause, it will lead to a mental state of health, you know, and which is the presumed effect. And that can be, let's say, depression, anxiety, it can be developed into a person. And you can directly manipulate stress level in your human subject and measure how these stress level they change the mental state of the person. Another example can be determining the effect of video clips on the learning ability of students of MPhil. The association between video clips and learning ability needs to be explained, let's say, and there can be so many other variables which might intervene in this, that might include the facility that is provided to the students, sample students, they have anxiety level, possibly they might be having some sort of fatigue because of this, these even are previously because of some history, and how much motivation does the person has for the learning, and proper diet, it also they are important other intervening variables. Another example includes higher education typically leads to higher income. Now the higher education is regarded as a presumed cause or independent variable, which leads to higher income. That can be that is the presumed effect or dependent variable. Whereas the if a person has got better occupation, he's got better lifestyle, then those are the you know uh, type of independent variables, because first you might have better occupation, better life, and that uh, intervenes with that higher education and higher income. That is the intervening variable which intervenes. And again, you will, if you have got this higher lifestyle, you have got big car, big house, then it intervenes in a way that it might increase the income or it might decrease the income as well. So there's all these things, they are intermingled, they are related. It is caused, you casually affected by education itself, affects income as well. Control or constant variable, it is a variable that is not allowed to be changed unpredictably during an experiment. If they are ideally expected to remain the same, they are called as the constant variable. And you don't want, next researcher doesn't allow some of the variables to be changed during the course of an experiment. For example, if you're conducting an animal model research and you've got these different control group and mice group, and you infecting them with certain disease. Now, these mice or mouse that you're studying, experimenting, they might be provided with a diet, they might be provided with water, they will be provided with air supply. These vary, they can variate if just throw, let's say, 5 pebbles to one of the mice and 2 pebbles to another mice, these diet stones, I mean to say. And okay, it doesn't matter. Some of them they might eat more, some of them they might eat less. That's okay. That affects your study. Amount of water that is going to be supplied, that affects your study. You take tap water for some of the mice group, you take, let's say, sterile distilled water, you provide them for other mice, so that is going to be that uh, is going to affect the study. Please note, you don't want to convert your constant variable into a confounding variable or intervening variable. So during the course of experiments or research, the very first requirement of the research that we initially, I guess the first lecture we talked about, is it should be controlled. It should have as much as less disturbing, confounding, intervening variables as possible. You just need to freely look into that, experiment that you are conducting, and you just as you would like to test your hypothesis without having these intervening variables into it, unnecessary variables in it. So what you would like to do is you need to provide a constant, a clean diet, sterile, absolutely clean diet with water which should be sterile, which should not get some extra disease variables into the animal, and air supply should be constant. All the mice, they should be provided with same diet, with the same water, same air supply. They are the constant variables. Interval variables, they need to have a numerical value, and they present an order, and which is of equal intervals. They allow the ranking of these different items that you are studying. They allow the ranking or ordering, sequence or hierarchy. They provide hierarchy to the items that are being measured, and besides that, they also help to quantify and compare the magnitude of different differences between them. For example, you have got this concept that a person is rich or poor, and then to convert into certain indicators, you said, okay, this is the limit annual income, monthly income, and then that monthly income is will be considered as a variable of interval when there is a sequence. For example, the person, the sum of the person, uh, 3%, let's say you've got, one is making a 10,000 rupees per month, another is 15,000, and third one is 20,000. Now you've got an interval between them which is of equal 5,000 difference, and it represents another variable. Ratio variable or scale variable. It is again similar to interval variable. One difference, the ratio makes sense. It provides the sense into it. For example, mostly used for mathematical operations, and let's say measurement of income, age. They are the example, height, or they are the examples of ratio. A person who is 40 years of age is twice as old as a 20-year old. Now you've got originally the interval variable, such as one person is 20 year, another person is 40 year, another might be 60 years. Now what is the sense which has been provided to this idea, that the sense that is created is the person who is 40 years old is twice as old as a 20-year. A person earning a $60,000 per year earns 3 times the salary of a person in earning $20,000. A person is 6 feet tall is twice as someone who is three. So these scales or ratio variable, they provide you a sense which is needed for interpretation of the results. So for interpretation, we have got these ratio intervals or ratio variables. Multiple response variable. There are variables which can assume more than one value. A typical survey questionnaire about the use of computers in research, or about, let's say, some history of some these disease surveyed questions. And for example, if you respondents were asked to indicate the purpose for which they are using their computers in their research, the respondent could score more than one category. Multiple responses will be provided by. For example, some of the persons you might ask, they will say, okay, we are using the computers in our research for statistical analysis, for lab automation, some processing controls. Some of them, they might say, we are using these computers for our database management, storage, retrieval. Some say that we have got some science for we need it for scientific calculation. Some other might say they use it for computer aided design. Some might say they use it for, let's say, editing of these different uh, uh, clips. Some might say they just use it for writing of their research work. Some might say they use it for learning objectives, learning different, utilizing different videos and other things. So multiple response variable are the variable which it might, which whose can assume more than one value. They can be in different directions. Thank you so much for listening to this talk to the different types of variables.